In this exercise, we're going to be discussing creating the base view. By now, you understand that Inventor has some commands that mean exactly what they say, and some commands that mean nothing what they say. And then you have commands that do what they say, but have multiple uses. Base view is one of those commands. Pretty straightforward. Base view creates our base view on our drawing. So to start with, we'll do a standard base view. We'll come up and we'll select the base view command. And I'm going to go through this dialog in a little bit of detail here. To start with, we have the file we want to use. And I have several files open, so you can see we could choose from any of these files to create our base view. If it's going to be an assembly drawing or a part drawing. In this case, I'm just going to do a simple part drawing. If I did do an assembly drawing, you see I get level of detail and positional representation. But if I go back to the IPT, you see that I only get representations. We can do different colors and things like that in the part. Everything else is assembly centric. Over to the right, we have the orientation. You can see we can do top, bottom, left, right. And this is based on the orientation the part was created in. You can see that this is a US projection here. And on this particular part, I'm going to choose bottom. Next thing down is I can decide, do I want it to show the scale, what scale I want it to be, what name I want to call it. I can even come in here and modify the actual text. See here's what it's going to look like underneath it. I could add additional text. I could modify this text. That's fine with me. And then I could decide, do I want to show hidden lines or not show hidden lines? And then do I want to show it shaded or in living color, as I like to call it? And if this works for me, I could just drop it. But if none of these views work for me and I don't like that, what I can do is come down here and select change orientation. And it takes me to what looks like a drawing window, but it's really not. Really, this allows me to come in here and I can reset my views. For example, if I wanted to reset this current view as top, then that means I could come in here, I could say this is the front view, and I could say this is what I want. Doesn't matter, I could do some weird angle. If I chose this angle right here, see, that's what my part's going to come in. But really and truly, I want it to be front, and I changed the front to be orientated to the part correctly. I could drop this, and it would be good to go. But I have a few more options to take a look at. I have model state, so if this was a weldment, I could go in and tell it what kind of welding information I want. If it had reference parts, I could decide how it's going to show those reference parts. I see this a lot with people that have a reference part in a drawing and they freak out because their parts don't show up correctly. 9 times out of 10, it's this right here. Display options. Some of this is based on, welding. You can say show model dimensions, work features. The majority of the things I choose are tangent edges, foreshorten, and interference edges. Basically what this boils down to is if you have a very rounded part, you sometimes can't see where the edge is. Remember we talked about the G2 constraints a while back, and you can't see where that edge disappears over the horizon. Well, that's fine if it's right at the outside edge, but if that's inside your part somewhere, if the top of this part had rounded edges up here, and we were looking down from the top, we wouldn't be able to see those lines right there if those were rounded. So we can turn on tangent and foreshorten edges, and that'll allow us to see more curvature type stuff. If I come over here, I could show you with the bottom of this here. I'm going to turn this off for a second. I'm going to blow this up so we can see it real good. And I'm going to turn off hidden lines. So we can see these edges fairly well. Like that edge there, we can't really see. If I turn that on, see, it kind of gives me the edge of where that curvature is and where it ends. And it allows you to see the part a little bit better. It's true even if the color is turned off. To me, it's even worse with the color turned off because there's no shading whatsoever. Really, that's what that is, shading. And so you can see now it kind of gives you the appearance of the rounded edge and kind of lets you convey your message on a little bit more. You'll notice that if I want to edit the base view, I can just double click on it and come back into it. I cannot change the orientation or the file after the fact, but I can change pretty much everything else. Everything that I could change the first time, I can come in here and change, hit OK, and I'm done. Now, with base views, you could bring in more than one base view. I don't have to do the projected view. which we'll get into a little bit later on, I could do another base view that maybe has nothing to do with this. So I could actually do another base view of the actual part, so I could show it, without the other parts and with them. Kind of before and after, so to speak. This is before the lid's on. This is after the lid's on. Another one that you could use this for is if you were showing a folded part that was sheet metal, you could also show the base view of the flat of that part. So the base view is the initial view, of course, and then it's any other view where you want to reference the file directly. Everything else is created off of these views. So, we have projected views, auxiliary views, section views, details, overlays. They can all be created from this base view. So think of it kind of like sketching. We do our first sketched feature, and then we go back and we add another sketch feature, and we can add others. So you can do the same thing with your base view. So we can add the first base view that has this information, and then the second base view that has, Y information. So you can use that to create these. So for the follow along part, I'm going to start over again here. I'm going to go up and I'm going to say select base view, select one of the parts that we've already done, and come in here and drop it with the front view. And it's going to go ahead and let us do the projected and ISO view as we do it. And you notice my part doesn't fit on my sheet. That's fine. If I get the scale that I want, if I want a 4:1 scale, I'll turn that on so I can see it. As long as I get what I want in the scale, I can come in here and edit the sheet after the fact. So I can say, instead of doing a C size sheet, I can go all the way up to an E size sheet here. So now I can move them around on my sheet and get exactly what I want based on that. So it doesn't matter if the base view is off the sheet. If I didn't even want to have the base view, if I just wanted to have this one side view, or if I was going to have like a section view, I could technically have base views reside outside the sheet and never be printed. And we can take and drive everything else off of this base view. If I come in here and I turn off hidden lines, you'll notice that my other parts turn off hidden lines. If I turn on the shaded or colored, see it turns on colored. Now the one exception to that is the ISO view. The ISO view is the rogue. It's the bad seed. It is broken already. So you can see there's not even a check to unbreak from the original. Whereas if I come over here and look at the projected views, their information comes from the base view. So I could actually break this off of the base view if I didn't want it to pull from the base view. Same with the scale. That's pulling the scale and the style properties from the base view. So everything is based on that base view. Try to put a couple in here like this. Do your projected, hit OK, and save your view. Whenever you go to save your drawing, it will automatically save it as whatever the first part you dropped into that drawing was. I dropped in the auxiliary clutch lever in here, so that's what it's going to let me save this as. I'd hit save, and now I have the auxiliary clutch lever.idw ready to go, and I can start putting dimensions on it and create my drawing. Try this, hit save, see what you can come up with. In this exercise, we're going to be creating baseline dimensions. Going to be using the baseline dimension.idw drawing. This should be under chapter 11. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to select the baseline command. And I'm just going to come in here and highlight what I want to make baseline dimension of. I right click and go to continue. I get the line work where I want it to end up. Then you'll notice what I'll do is I'll select this line and I'll right click and say make that line the origin. For some reason it always likes to go out of the middle. I'm not really sure why. Then I right click again and say create. So now I have my dimensions in here. I'll do that one more time. I'll say create baseline or repeat baseline here. Select everything I want to make a baseline. I right click and say continue. Drop it in there. Select the line I want to actually be my origin point. Right click and say make origin. Right click, say create. And I'm done. Now with this, if I wanted to come in here and remove this internal information, or if I wanted to come in here and remove the inside or the outside of something, I can hit delete and remove what I want to remove. I can select these again. I can say arrange, and it'll respace them out and allow me to replace them because I've removed out of the middle. I get everything the way I want it, and I'm done. It is that easy. Now, there are two options with baseline and baseline set. And to be honest with you, I can't find anybody that can tell me why there's still a baseline set. Originally, the command for baseline would only do one at a time, but now it will do multiples. So they basically do the same thing. I think it's just a legacy left over. If I select these, I can right click, and if I come in here and say edit, I can change things like the precision. I can add tolerances to it. I can change the decimal points. So I'll have the full 3 decimals if I want. If I right click, I can do a precision in here as well. I actually have the options to remove arrowheads and leaders. I can adjust the text. You'll notice I have 2 different precisions there. Not sure why they have the same thing twice, but they do the exact same thing. I can come in here and change my style. Everything is based on a style in Inventor. So up here you can see this is the default metric style. If I wanted to come over here, I can change it to the ANSI style, ANSI millimeter style. You can see the metric and imperial style there. So you get a lot of options with that, but it's very easy to use. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because it's that simple. That's all it is. Play with it and create you some baseline dimensions. In this exercise, we're going to talk about editing the revision table styles. We've not talked a whole lot about styles up to this point, but in the dimensioning and drawing environment, styles are everything. Styles are what controls the way everything looks and how everything acts. The revision table is one of the things that you definitely need to tweak a little bit right out of the box to get it to look something more like what you want. So we come to the Manage tab and we click on the Styles Editor, and right away we notice that there's a lot more options in here than what we had in the model or assembly environment. We come in here and we select Revision Table, and we can start editing this. But remember what I said before, don't edit anything before you actually make a copy of it. So you say, Revision Table Andy. And now what I can do is come in here and start changing things. I have the ability to change, what's it called? Instead of saying Revision History, say Revision Table, or I can say just Revision. I can change the text style, the heading gap. I can choose, is the header going to be at the top and the table coming down? Or is the header going to be down here at the bottom and the table going up? You can adjust the heading independently of which direction the table goes. So you can adjust that there. You can adjust the spacing. You can do double space or triple space. You can adjust the grid itself. How do you want your spreadsheet to show up? Really, truly, the real money is right here in the default column settings. This is where you're going to spend most of your editing time, or at least this is where I do. I don't ever do zones, and we don't do approved by. We do author to show who edited it. I have all my iProperties in here, and I can add any of them to my revision table that I want to, and I can even make a new property. I hit OK. So then what I can do is come in here and start editing the default widths. Say 5, say 3, date, I think I'm going to leave about 1. Author, about 1.5. So now I have my columns the way I want. I make my dialogue a little bit bigger here. You can see comments. So I can say Andy. Say full username here. Or I can just say I changed it to whatever. So I can add some information in here. It is kind of important because when you get a lot of changes going on, you have a lot of people making changes or requesting changes, can't remember why you did something. I just had this the other day. Somebody said, hey, I need everything that's changed since last year. I don't remember everything that's changed since last year. I remember we changed a bunch of stuff, but I don't remember if it was last year or 6 years ago. So I do like to make comment notes in here so I can see, okay, we didn't like the line weight of this particular line, so we came in here and changed it for this reason. The other option we have is revision tags. We can choose whether we want them to be round or hexagon or triangular. We can come in here and change the actual substyle of the leader itself. For the most part, these are pretty good out of the box. Like I said, the main thing here is all the money in here and what columns you use and what width the columns are. So I save this, I hit done. And I come over here to my annotation, I'm going to test it. So I'm going to say, okay, all this. I'm going to make sure I use the Andy revision table there. Took all that hard time to make it. And you'll notice it'll snap in there for me. And everything looks pretty good. Now, my name isn't centered there. I like my name to be centered. I'm kind of an egomaniac like that. So I can right click on it and say edit, go to format, change it to centered. Okay. And it's changed. Now that's not actually changed the style. I would actually need to right click and say edit revision table style, and it'll pull it back up for me. So I can say this column here, I want to be centered, but this column here, I want to be left value. Now, just because I changed that doesn't mean that it actually changed to here. You would have to manually change this, or you'd have to delete it and reinsert it. The style itself isn't dynamically linked back to the table. So if you do make changes, you got to reinsert it. Good thing is you don't ever make changes to a revision table. Once you get it set up the way you want it, it's pretty much always going to be like that. If you don't like it, then you can go back and tweak it, but very rarely do you ever have to tweak the revision table after you get it created. If you do need to change the styles, you can select it, come up here and change styles. And then we do want to set that style to be the active style. So I can come in here, make sure this is everything I want. And then I come in here to my object defaults. Sort by object type. Find my revision table, change it to Andy. Do the same thing with my revision tag. Done. Save my edits. So now every time I enter a revision table, it'll automatically be the Andy revision table. So I can see there, everything looks good, everything's centered the way I want it, and that's my revision table. The next exercise, we'll actually go through and practice inserting revision tables, and I'll walk you through step by step. But that's how to edit the style of it. Once again, it's under Manage, Styles Editor, and then you have your revision table style, and then that is stored in your object defaults. We'll go through the object defaults in a little bit more detail here in a little bit. Play with this and see if you can set up your styles for your revision table to get it the way you want it. If you upgrade your computer, don't forget to do this. One of the things I always forget to do, if I go to a new computer, I can't figure out why my revision table looks so bad. It's because I forget to go in there and edit my style and change it back the way I want it. So first thing you need to do is set it up, set up your style, get it the way you want it. Then we'll go through and actually practice inserting them and talk about that in the next exercise. In this exercise, we're going to talk about the drawing border format. So we can go through and we can actually create our own custom borders. The borders are stored under Drawing Resources, Borders. I can come up here and I could say define new border or new zone border. I'm going to do the zone border first. What this allows me to do is say, okay, I need 8 zones this way, 6 zones this way. This is going to be numeric, being 1, 2, 3, 4. This is going to be alphabetic, ABC. I can even come in here and adjust text styles, how big I want it to be, what kind of margins do I want it to be. You know, maybe I want my margin top and bottom to be 625. 75 is fine for my left and right. Hit OK. I'll come in here and it'll actually ask me, do I want to change anything? Say finish, Andy. And you'll notice I didn't get that border. It's because the default border is in my drawing. So I delete that and insert that in. The Andy border is adjustable. So if I delete it and insert it in, if I go to insert it in and it's a really big drawing, I can change this out where it's going to be 8 by 8. So now you can see you get that in there. If you need to go even further customized, you right click up here on borders, find new border, and you can actually manually draw out a border. You can add hatches, you can add anything you want. I'm way too lazy to do that. So what I'll do sometimes if I need that is I'll come in here and I'll set up a zone border, 6 by 8, hit OK. And you can see there, it'll come in here and let me change how I want it to be. You know, maybe I don't want the little arrow in there in my zone border on this particular one. I just want it to have the tick marks. So you can actually delete. You can see all of my dimensions on here it gives me. So it gives me all of these options. Say finish. Andy 2. So now if I insert in Andy 2, I don't have the arrows. So I have a nice clean border. You will notice that it had a different margin and my title block actually still snaps to the border. So it was smart enough to understand that the borders change size and it will snap to where it is. If I go and I want to insert in this new one, it's going to say, hey, there's already one in there. You have to delete it out. So I can delete out the Andy or Andy 2 and insert in the Andy. You can see there, margin tweaked again. So the borders are very simple. I like Inventor's border. I don't have a problem with it. But if you do have a company specific border you want to create, you can do anything you want. The sky is the limit on this thing. You can go through. If you wanted to come in here and edit this, I've seen some companies that would have something like this every other line, and then they'd go in and they'd hatch or fill that region. I just want to do a solid. So now whenever I insert in the Andy, I could have open, solid, open, solid, open, all the way around, like a checkerboard if you want. You could even go in there and cut out around the text. You could do inverted text. You can do a lot of different things with these. Get creative with it. And remember that the border is only the border. This isn't talking about your title block. This is only the outside edges of it. And then the next exercise, we're going to go in and talk about creating our own title block. One last exercise here, talking about exporting our drawings out. Sometimes you get done with your drawings, you have to send these out to other users. So I'm going to talk real briefly here about exporting. First export you have, you come up, you go to export, is export to PDF. This is probably the most common. Hit save, and you're done. It really is that easy. It'll actually open it up in your PDF writer of choice. So now we have this drawing. You can email it out to somebody, and we're good to go. The next one is save as. If you hit that little arrow here and you say save copy as, and what this will allow you to do is save it out to other drawing formats and other image formats. Probably the most important one is going to be AutoCAD files. You save this out as an AutoCAD file. So we go to chapter 13, centerlines.dwg. What I always do if I save it out as an AutoCAD file is I label it as an ACAD, hit options here, and I can choose what version of AutoCAD it is. So I can say AutoCAD 2010, AutoCAD 2007, whatever you may need, depending on your vendor or your customer. Finish, save. So now I've saved that out as an AutoCAD file. I can open up AutoCAD and open that up, and it's just that easy. You have other options with solids. If I open up one of our solid parts here, I can go save copy as or export. I'm going to do export CAD format. Now I can actually save this out as a ProE file. I can save it out as an IGES file, a CATIA file, STEP file, SAT file. Here's kind of my take on these. If you need to go backwards in time, Inventor does not let you save backwards. So if you need to send this to another version of Inventor that's older, save it out as an SAT file. This is Autodesk native solid file, and it's going to be the cleanest way to get it there. It loses all of its intelligence, but there's no other way. Save it back, and that's one of the better ones. The next choice of mine is STEP. If I'm going to send this out to a SolidWorks guy, I'm going to save it out as a STEP file. Sometimes if you save back to STEP files, it'll allow you to do it. And then lastly is IGES. It's the oldest of the free formats, I guess you'd call it, or legacy formats that allow you to send this out. A lot of mold makers use this format. They request it. Their programs are good at sucking in IGES files, so you can save that out. If you do save it out as a STEP or an IGES or something, you do have a couple options in here where you can go through and decide, do you want it to be this international standard? Do you want it to be a configuration control design? What are the tolerances? Things like that. You hit save and it'll save it out for us. If I change this over to IGES, I'll show you real quick what the IGES options are. IGES just basically says, do you want it to go out of surfaces, solids, or wireframe? It's pretty simple. Solids more than likely. Solids that are bound. And then how do you want it to do it? You can include sketches. You hit OK. You hit save. And now you've got your IGES file. So now you can send this out to other users, and it's ready to go for anybody who needs to create a mold or use an AutoCAD file. And it's an easy way to share information with other users.